All right, let's get started. So my name is Jonathan Fidrick. I am the Transmission Planning Manager at Tri-State. We're going to get started with our annual stakeholder meeting. So welcome. We're going to, I guess, get started. So who's Tri-State? We were incorporated in 1952. We're a GNT cooperative operating on a not-for-profit basis. We were formed by its member systems for the purpose of providing wholesale power and energy to the membership, and those member systems for the purpose of providing, for resale to their retail customers. We're controlled by a 40-plus seat board of directors, with each member occupying one seat on that board. Our mission is to provide reliable, affordable, and responsible supply of electricity in accordance with those cooperative principles. So here's kind of an overview of our map. So we have a nearly 200,000 square mile service area through those member cooperatives. It extends all the way from the Rocky Mountains down to the southern deserts, and comprises roughly 6,000 miles of high voltage lines and 219 substations and telecom sites. For this meeting, we're going to go through the local planning process, which is open to all interested parties, including but not limited to all network and point-to-point transmission service customers, interconnecting neighbors, transmission providers, regulatory agencies, and other stakeholders. The purpose is to promote discussion of all aspects of the transmission planning activities, including but not limited to the methodology, study inputs, public policy requirements, study results, and alternative solutions. And then lastly, to provide a forum for us to better understand the specific electric transmission interests of those stakeholders. So the scope of today, we're going to go through the transmission planning process. We're going to summarize the status of the generator interconnection and transmission service queue. Also look at providing updates on developing and planned projects, receive any transmission study requests from stakeholders for review and discussion, and then solicit information from those customers on loads and resources and other needs, such as public policy requirements for the preparation of the 10-year plan. And then lastly, we're going to have a brief overview of the SPP RTO expansion in the West. So this is not the only forum to be involved. This meeting is supplemented by additional stakeholder outreach activities in connection with individual transmission projects or overall programmatic needs. So one of those other venues in which you can be involved is through the Colorado Coordinated Planning Group, which is voluntary and open transmission planning forum. It's open to all those interested stakeholders and includes all Colorado transmission providers. There's a link to the bottom to the West Connect CCPG subregional website. So we're going to get started with the planning process. So Tri-State endeavors to conduct transmission planning with the goal of achieving best cost solutions that balance numerous factors. Some of those factors include load projections, new delivery point requests, reliability standards, generator resources interconnection requests, project partnership opportunities, regional congestion, transmission corridors, taking into account city and zoning, geographic features and limitations, any impacts, operational maintenance requirements, and then short-term and long-term planning opportunities. So here's kind of an overview of the process. I think we went over this like last year, and it's a consistent diagram that we show. So the study process and our methodologies for all these studies, most of this information is posted on OASIS. So the transmission planning process is in our OAT, it's attachment K. The large generator interconnection procedures are attachment N. The small generator interconnection procedures are attachment O. We have our engineering standards bulletin also posted out there and available. And then lastly, we have EMTP modeling guidelines and when those are requested in general. So here's kind of an overview of the local versus regional planning. So in the local process, it really involves local stakeholders, working groups. Specifically, one of those is CCPG and SWAT, and then we solicit stakeholder participation in those forums. Anything developed from those local processes then goes up from the sub-regional plan, and then from there it goes to the West Connect regional-based transmission plan. So there's participation there from CCPG and SWAT, and then there's additional stakeholder participation opportunities. As part of the West Connect process, there's the opportunity for the development of regional scenarios for additional evaluation. And then there's also development of economic models for production cost modeling. So everything from that process feeds into the culmination of a regional needs alternatives evaluation, and ultimately a regional plan that is then published. So this is kind of a look at our resource portfolios versus transmission planning. There's multiple public policy drivers that feed into the generation studies, essentially what is looked at as our energy resource plan. In this, we have the requirements of planning reserve margins that are considered, the different portfolios, and then there's also consideration for production cost modeling. All of this information then is provided to the transmission planning group, and additional studies are performed, such as site-specific studies, power flow modeling, and dynamic simulations to identify any necessary upgrades in terms of the ability to interconnect those resources and portfolio reliability. So there's three essentially required studies. There's the power flow studies, which are contingency analysis looking at the various different P0 through P7 type events that are outlined in NERC TPL 1-5. So we're monitoring for overloads and voltage issues, identify areas for local and site-specific studies as part of that. The next one is dynamic simulations. So in dynamic simulations, we really monitor frequency response, governor response, rotor angle stability, out-of-step conditions, and then determine if there's any necessary improvements that need to be made to address those. Also, evaluation for dynamic VARs. The next one is EMTP studies or electromagnetic transient studies, which really here we're looking for controller interactions, flicker harmonics, and weak grid scenarios, and trying to evaluate those to determine if there's something else that needs to be improved. Today, so this is kind of a capture of what was posted as of last week. So this is the generator interconnection queue as it was available then. There is a total of roughly 6,000 megawatts that currently have generator interconnection agreements in various states. 13 of those are completed, 13 executed, and 13 that are suspended. You can see the various megawatt amounts for each of those statuses. And then in our LGIP process, so those that are currently in study, there are roughly 11,000 megawatts of requests, and there's a couple different ongoing studies that are open right now. We have our 2024 transitional cluster, which is part of our our tariff filing for Order 2023. And so from that, there are currently 22 projects for a total of roughly 4,000 megawatts. And it's currently under restudy for Cluster Area 4, which is essentially Eastern Colorado. And there were 6 projects that have withdrawn. So that 22 number is what's there and is reflective of those 6 that have withdrawn so far. There's the 2025 resource solicitation cluster. In that cluster, as of last week, there were 3 projects posted for a total of 557 megawatts. It's currently under study. And then there's also the 2025 surplus, which these are projects that are looking at additional, essentially battery interconnections associated with existing LGIAs. There are 4 of those projects for a total of 629 megawatts, and those are currently under study. And then lastly, we have our 2025 annual cluster. In that cluster, there's 26 projects for roughly 5,900 megawatts. Customer engagement actually closed yesterday. So there are also 3 that have withdrawn during that period of time for a total of 442 megawatts. If you add all of this together, there is roughly 17,000 megawatts of generator interconnection requests between those that have generator interconnection agreements and those that are currently in the study process. Here's kind of an overview of what those documents look like. It's kind of an eye chart, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. It's available on Oasis, and it's available on this presentation, which will be posted later. This is a summary of our 2024 transitional cluster. This is what the 2025 resource solicitation cluster looks like. These are the 3 projects. And this is our 2025 surplus interconnection service studies. And then this is our 2025 annual cluster. And there's an active link that takes you to our Oasis page for these documents. Okay, study requests. So there's various different study requests. There's transmission study requests. There were none received outside of the sub-regional planning groups, CCPG and SWATs. I guess at this point I'll ask, are there any new requests for discussion? Okay. Economic study requests. We didn't receive any economic study requests outside of the regional study process. So that's WestConnect. Those requests are due to Tri-State by September 1 of each year for discussion at this annual meeting. As always, please submit any requests to Tri-State at this transmissionplanning@tristategT.org email address. And then information requests. We sent out information requests for load and resource information to network customers, and I believe this was provided back in August. Projects. So this is kind of where the most of the information resides for this year's presentation. There's several different categories, developing projects. Some objectives and needs are identified. We're still being considered, but it's really going through the process. There's conceptual projects, which are hypothetical objectives and needs, looking through identify alternatives, or alternatives have been decided and project drivers are not 100% certain. Planned projects, objectives and needs are clear at the current time, but are subject to change. We have a preferred alternative or more than one alternative has been identified, and the project drivers are more clear and certain than those conceptual projects. And then lastly, there's the last 2 are under construction. So those are projects that are currently accruing costs through preliminary activities such as design, routing, permitting, regulatory activities, and or actual construction. And lastly is those projects that have been energized. So this is a list or kind of an overview of those projects that are in Colorado. It looks a bit different than last year and trying a different format. So you'll see there's a total of, I believe, 27 projects in Colorado If you had looked at the map, the first project is essentially Burlington Lamar. It was a new 230 line from existing Burlington to the existing Lamar substations, and it was energized earlier this year. The second project is Burlington to Burlington KC. So this is a 115 kV line uprate. It's an uprate of an existing conductor from a maximum design temperature of 50 degrees C to 100. And this was energized earlier this year. Triton tap delivery point was an addition of 115 kV tap on the existing Lost Creek to tap to Lost Creek line. So these are all energized. The fourth project is a transformer replacement at Kersey, which is a replacement with a 1824 30 MVA unit to match the existing T2. Project number 5 was Garnet Mesa Solar. That's a line bay addition at Garnet Mesa substation to interconnect an 80 megawatt solar facility, and that was energized earlier this year. There is the Iron Mountain delivery point, which is a new delivery point on the Airport Windsor tap to Whitney 115 kV line with an in-service date of 2026, and it's currently under construction. Project number 7 is Boone to Huckleberry. This is the new 230 line from Boone to Huckleberry. Huckleberry is going to be a new substation along the existing Comanche to Walsenburg 230 line, and it is projected for in-service in 2026 and is currently under construction. There is the Slater double circuit conversion project. That's project number 8. It's a rebuild of the existing Del Camino tap to Slater line as a double circuit. It converts a 3-terminal line to separate Longs Peak Slater and Meadow to Slater 115 kV lines and adds a 115 kV breaker at Slater. The in-service date is next year. Project number 9, Rolling Meadows delivery point, formerly known as Rolling Hills. It's a new delivery point along the existing Geeson-Dolerson Ranch 115 kV line, and it is currently under construction with a 2027 in-service date. And then lastly, the project number 10 that is currently under construction is Crosspoint 230 kV delivery point, and it's a new delivery point along the existing Lincoln to Midway 230 line. And then next we'll transition to planned projects in Colorado. So project number 11 is Badger Creek to Big Sandy 230. The new 230 line from Big Sandy to Badger Creek along the existing Henry Lake to Story 230 line, and that has an in-service date projected in 2028. Big Sandy to Burlington 230 line upgrade is structure modifications and replacements to increase the line rating from a maximum operating temperature of 50 degrees C to 100 degrees C. That has an in-service date of 2028. Arapahoe T1 replacement is replacement of the existing 115 24/9 T1 transformer due to poor health. That has a 2027 in-service date. Burlington T1, similar. It's a replacement due to poor transformer health, and that also has a 2027 in-service date. Ritchie Gulch delivery point is a new delivery point on the Black Hills Portland to West Station 115 kV line with a 2027 in-service date. Project number 16 is Messick's T1 replacement. So the existing Lost Creek unit, which is a 5.7 MVA unit, will be installed at Messick's once the upgraded unit has been installed at Lost Creek, which will be a 10/12, and that has a 2027 in-service date. Lost Creek T1 replacement. So this is a replacement of the existing unit with the larger 10/12 MVA unit in 2027, which goes with the previous project 16. Project number 18, Gateway T3 edition. It's a new transformer at the existing Gateway substation with a projected 2028 in-service date. Project number 19 is Falcon T3. So this is a new 115 1247 transformer at the existing Falcon substation with a 2028 in-service date, and that's currently planned. Forest Lakes T1. This is the addition of a new transformer to Forest Lakes, which is a relocation of the existing unit at Falcon. That one has a projected in-service date of 2028. Project 21 is the Sunrise delivery point, which is the new 115 24/9 delivery point adjacent to South Kersey, which currently exists. has a projected in-service date of 2029. Project 22 is Kodak T4. This is the new 115/1247 transformer at the existing Kodak substation with a projected in-service date of 2028. Project 23 is the Sulphur Creek delivery point. So this is tapping an existing 138 kV line between Axial Basin and Meeker, approximately 7.5 miles northeast of Meeker. This one has a projected in-service date of 2027. And then Project 24 is Montrose 115 kV interconnect. So this is a new line bay addition and bus sectionalizing breaker at the existing Montrose 115 kV substation to accommodate a 100 megawatt resource addition with a planned projected in-service date of 2026. The last planned project is project number 25, associated with Buena Vista. This is the T2 replacement. So this is a new transformer at the existing Buena Vista substation to match the existing T1 that was recently replaced. This has an in-service date projected in 2029. The two conceptual projects that remain are projects 26 and 27. Project 26 is a Crosspoint to Schriever 115 kV transmission line. This is for reliability, I believe, and load development. This is a conceptual project currently. Project 27 is a tie line between the two La Junta substations, one of them being Tri-States and the other being Black Hills. This is a load-driven and reliability-driven project on behalf of Tri-State initially. This is a conceptual project. It's still being evaluated. Next, we have projects in New Mexico, of which there's 5. So in this, there are, let's see, project number 28 is the Belinda Bernardo 115 kV upgrades, which is a replacement of structures around Bernardo sub and upgrading the ring bus. It's currently under construction and is scheduled to go in service later this year, which we're close to. So project 29, Frontier to Picacho 115. So this one is currently also under construction, and this is an uprate of the existing conductor from a maximum conductor design temperature of 50 degrees C to 100 degrees C, and structure replacements were needed due to age and condition. Project 30 is Caballo to Membres. This is a rebuild of the existing line with a larger conductor and a higher operating temperature at 100 degrees C. This one is also under construction and has a 2026 in-service date. Project 31 and 32 are planned projects. So the first one, Project 31, is the Row T1 replacement. This is a replacement of the existing transformer with a larger unit. Projected need is in 2028. And then Thoreau 115 kV delivery point is a new delivery point along the Ceniza tap to Escalante 115 kV line with a projected need in 2029. So that's it for New Mexico. Next projects are in Wyoming, and there's also 5 projects, and you can kind of see where they're located. So there's 3 projects under construction and 2 projects planned, excuse me. Project 33 is the Archer to Stegall sectionalizing project. This is a sectionalization of the Archer to Stegall 115 kV line with new 115 kV 3-breaker ring bus, expandable at Pole Creek, and 3 115 kV breakers in a star bus configuration at Round Top. This one is expected to go into service later this year. It's currently under construction. Project 34 is Sentinel T1 replacement. It's the removal of the existing transformer installation of a new larger unit at 40 MVA. This one has a projected in-service date of 2028 and is currently under construction. Project 35 is the Wind River capacitor addition. So this project is a relocation and installation of an existing capacitor bank that is currently at Crested Butte. So this is going to move up to Wind River, and the in-service date is in 2026 and is currently under construction. The next 2 and last projects in Wyoming are Project 36, which is Trowbridge T1 replacement. This is the replacement of an existing failed unit. It has an in-service date of 2028 and is currently planned. Project 37 is the Pine Bluffs T1 replacement, and this is replacement of a 30 MVA transformer to replace the existing T1 and terminal improvements associated with that, and it has a 2028 in-service date planned. Next is Nebraska. So in Nebraska, there's 3 projects. You can see those are all under construction. So there's the Snake Creek reactor. This is a substation expansion and installation of a new 16 MVAR shunt reactor at Snake Creek with a 2025 in-service date and is under construction. I think that one's getting pretty close. Project 39 is the Ogallala Tri-State delivery point. So there's multiple Ogallala substations. This is Tri-State's 115 substation. It's going to include the installation of a new transformer to serve a new delivery point request. That has a projected in-service date of 2026 and is currently under construction. And then the last project is Project 40. This is Lamar, Nebraska T1 replacement. So this is the replacement of an existing T1 with a larger 58 MVA unit and terminal equipment improvements. And this one has a 2027 projected in-service date and is currently under construction. So other projects. So there's a couple other things going on in the area. There is the New Mexico Sunzia project and the Lucky Corridor projects. So Sunzia has a website posted there. That one is getting pretty close to, I believe, complete. Lucky Corridor is currently in development still. Includes the Mora project with Don Carlos Wind, and Vista Trails is kind of an expansion of that project. In Wyoming, there's Transwest Express, which is still ongoing. I guess the last topic that I want to cover today is the SPP RTO expansion. So this one's kind of a high-level overview of some of the things that have been going on and some of the information that we know to date, and kind of an example of what we can expect in the future. So this is the expansion footprint. You'll see the light green, that's the existing RTO footprint in the east, which SPP manages today. And we're looking at the expansion, which is the darker green area in the west. And so you'll see that, and it has carve-outs in Colorado and part of Wyoming for those parts that are not currently projected to go into the RTO when this go-live occurs. So go-live is currently scheduled for April 1st of 26. So that's the, apologies on the date there. 1 year ago, that didn't happen. Obviously, it should be April 1st, 2026. The membership of those RTO expansion members, if you go to the website down there for the RTO expansion, it lists these members. Those are the ones that are currently projected to move forwards. You'll see that WAPA has multiple regions that are looking at joining. So what does transmission planning look like in SPP today? And then what can we sort of expect? So they have an annual transmission planning cycle. So this is a regional planning process that's built to leverage knowledge of the existing transmission system's reliability. It includes evaluation of public policy, operational needs, and economic needs, as well as compliance and generator interconnection, any transmission service requests, and those impacts to develop a cost-effective transmission portfolio over a 10-year planning horizon. So that's their annual process. There's a 10-year and 20-year assessment. So it's essentially a 2-year cycle, and there's an annual release of their 10-year expansion plan. So the integrated transmission plan produces a 10-year expansion plan yearly, and then on a 5-year cycle, they basically have a 20-year assessment for strategic infrastructure planning. And so this is to align the longer-term projected need with the near-term needs, such that you're developing a more holistic approach and an ideal backbone to serve those longer-term forecasts that you're seeing. Development, investments, and costs, or balancing investments and costs. So this balances long-term transmission investments with congestion costs to ensure economic efficiency. So this is outlined in attachment O of SPP's OAT. It's also covered in the ITP manual, and then the applicable year ITP scope. So the applicable one that's being published this year is the 2025 ITP in the East. There is currently no ITP in the West because the SPP RTO expansion hasn't gone live. I think it's important to note at this point that the first ITP planned for the West is expected in 2027. So they're currently going through the model build process and evaluating everything. So they're really in the initial phases right now. Most of the study is looking to begin next year. Stakeholder and regulatory integration. So ITP works, so the integrated transmission plan works with multiple stakeholders and aligns with NERC compliance to support regulatory adherence and engagement. And the way this is accomplished is through the multiple working groups that are available for participation. And these working groups comprise the Transmission Working Group, which is known as TWG, the Economic Studies Working Group, ESWG, Model Development Advisory Group, MDAG, Cost Allocation Work Group, the Production Cost Working Group, Market and Operations Policy Committee, MOPSI, Strategic Planning Committee, Regional State Committee, Board of Directors, so that's the board, the Interregional Planning Stakeholder Advisory Committee, IPSAC, and then the Operating Reliability Working Group, or ORWG. So there's multiple avenues and venues for participation for stakeholders to voice their opinions and support or desire for direction to be considered through the planning process. And there's multiple opportunities. Generally in the July timeframe, they have held an engineering workshop to go over the initial results of what they're expecting for the current year cycle integrated transmission plan. And then once they have that workshop, they go back and refine everything, and we come up with a final portfolio that goes to the board, I believe, in December. And that's the SPP board. Lastly, approval and implementation. So this is received or is reviewed by the TWG. So this document that is developed, the ITP needs document, is reviewed by the TWG, Transmission Working Group, ESWG, Economic Studies Working Group, MOPSI, the Markets and Operations Policy Committee, and approved by SPP's board to ensure strategic alignment. Part of this process is once they get through the end of it and they determine the final list and portfolio of projects, it goes to basically a notice to construct with conditions, and then a notice to construct for these projects. And then there's also those projects which are just, they don't receive either of these, and they're carried over to the next cycle to determine if the need is present. Again, so this is a yearly review to confirm necessity and adherence to schedules, ensuring accountability. So if you receive the NTCC and the NTC, they basically have a yearly review of the projects to confirm that the need is still there, and to basically ensure that development of the projects is proceeding to meet the requirements that they outline. So this is kind of a capture of the multiple drivers that were considered in the 2025 ITP in the East. We can expect something similar for the West. So this year, the needs drivers were load growth, both on the reliability and economic side, and then there's multiple futures. There's future 1 and future 2. Future 1 has more certainty tied to the load, and then future 2 is essentially less certain load growth, but they still believe there's projection and there's value in evaluating that. So then go through and they look at seasonal extremes in terms of reliability. On the economic side, they look at curtailed generation and the costs associated with that. And then they see if there's any generation shortfall, increased outages, and then if there's insufficient transmission. They go through the whole process, do production cost modeling, and determine which projects are most economic, which projects meet the reliability needs, and they come up with a holistic portfolio at the conclusion. And some projects have multiple drivers or meet multiple drivers, such as reliability and economics. Here's kind of an example of the planning assessment report. So this is what came out of the 2025 ITP. We can expect something similar for the West. So in the 2025 ITP final portfolio, this is kind of an overview of the projects that were identified. There was, in the approved portfolio, about $8.6 billion worth of transmission upgrades for a system that expands from the Dakotas all the way down to Texas. Of that, there were 50 new transmission projects. There were 949 miles of new 765. So this is essentially the backbone of the future system. And then there's 62 miles of additional new 345. So why does this all matter? It's really enabling the growth of the existing system and electrification, the growth of manufacturing and economic development, and that growth based on the futures that are informed by various different inputs. They expect to see demand double in the East in the next 10 years. So really they're investing in reliability to meet that demand future that they see. Lastly, as part of this whole thing, they're really looking to see if there's the projects that are approved for construction in the ITP are going to basically produce regional benefits and what those regional benefits may amount to. So in this portfolio, they identified between $12 and $18 in regional benefits for every dollar that's invested. So we can expect to see, maybe not these numbers, but we can expect to see some kind of a report back on regional planning in the West and for that footprint and the expansion area. So that kind of concludes this presentation. If you desire more information, Tri-State has a webpage. That's the webpage. Go to Operations and Transmission Planning. There's a list out there of our 3627 and biannual filing. And then there's our other projects that are ongoing. There is the ability to communicate with us through our email, which is transmissionplanning@tristategT.org. And then lastly, for any comments, you can go to the CCPG comment form for Colorado projects. And this is located on the West Connect CCPG stakeholder opportunities link down below. I guess I'll open it up for any comments, questions, see if there are any. And then if not, we will conclude this year's stakeholder meeting.
I have a quick follow-up question about the availability of the slides. I understand you'll be sharing these slides after the call, but will these be emailed to the attendees or made available on Oasis?
It'll be posted to our webpage, so tristate.coop. I can send out a link to where it's located, but if you go to Operations and Transmission Planning, there is a link that takes us to our stakeholder meetings.
Great,
Ryan,
thank you.
Yeah, we'll post a link in the chat to where you can find it, but it's not posted there yet. It'll be after the meeting.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Presentation, I saw the mention of the peak load for the SPP. Is there any estimate for the TO West when that comes in?
I can't hear you.
Is there any estimate for the total load TO West when that comes to play?
Um, no estimate. Any other questions? If not, we'll conclude this year's annual meeting. All right. Thank you all for your participation, and we'll see you again next year.